In this video, I'm going to explain the negative message assignment. The first thing that you need to know for this assignment is that you need to pretend that you're the internship coordinator for the construction management program. So you're going to write as if you were the coordinator for the program to a student who is looking to achieve or complete their CSM 3191 credit. The next thing that I want you to do is go ahead and go to the Carmen Course website and open up this assignment. And you're going to scroll down to the second page where you will find this document. And this is actually an image of a real internship report that we received a few years ago. So clearly this is when we were still on quarters. It was spring quarter. And we received this report from an employer at the end of a student's internship. Read through this report and then come back to the video and I'll explain the rest of the assignment. So clearly there are issues with the way the student performed in his internship. His attire was unprofessional, his behavior was unprofessional, his communication was unprofessional. But what really is the worst thing that the student did in his internship? He inflated his hours for every pay period. So in essence, he lied on his time card, and not only is that unethical, but that's actually considered to be fraud. If we take a look at the course criteria for the 3191 credit, one of the basic requirements is that students work a total of 400 hours. So clearly with his time card fraud, the student has not met the 400-hour requirement. So your job now as the internship coordinator is to write a negative message that informs the student or has the student understand that he may not use this work experience for his 3191 credit, but he also has to understand why the experience cannot be used and what he must do to ensure that future experience will count toward the 3191 credit. Now, you also have a secondary purpose of maintaining goodwill, because remember, you still have to work with a student and you're still going to work with him to make sure that he does earn his 3191 credit. When you write this negative message to the student, you're going to write it in a business letter format. So you want to make sure that you're writing it in either a block letter or a modified block letter format. And if you take a look in Appendix A of the textbook, you'll see examples of both of those. Figure A2 is a block letter format, and this is actually the format that I would prefer that you use. But here you'll see in Figure A3, this is modified block format, and if you're more familiar with this format, that's certainly fine to use as well. When you're formatting your letter, you can use this letterhead, so simply just copy and paste the letterhead into a Microsoft Word document. You also want to make sure that you are addressing the letter to student X with this address. Now, in this letter, you also need to include an appropriate subject line. And the textbook addresses how to create an appropriate subject line in a negative message. It's important in a negative message that you include the topic, but not the specific negative. You don't want your audience to be on the defensive or to be less receptive to your message because they're upset at what they've read just from the subject line. So for example, when you're writing your letter, if you decide to use a subject that says something like internship credit denied, the student is probably going to be very upset as soon as they read the subject line. So you want to try to make it a little bit more neutral. Just omit the word denied. So your subject just reads internship credit. Depending on who your audience is, the way that you organize your negative message might be slightly different. In this assignment, we're going to use the negative message peer to subordinate organization. So that means we're going to use a specific kind of organization in our letter. The very first thing that we're going to do is describe the problem. We're going to use a clear and convincing reason that is immediately followed by the refusal. Now in this case, what is the clear and convincing reason? It's the fact that the student lied on their time card and therefore they did not earn or they did not complete the required 400 hours. So when you write your letter, you want to start with that clear and convincing reason immediately followed by the refusal. But you also want to give the student an alternative. Remember, he still has to complete his 3191 credit. So make sure that he's aware of that and understands what he needs to do in order to earn that credit, or in other words, in order to be professional in his next position. The other thing that you want to do with a peer to subordinate organization is to make sure that you're asking for input. There are several different ways that you can do that in this letter, but you might want to go ahead and set up an appointment with a student so that you and he can sit down and talk about appropriate behavior. The 5 criteria for effective business communication will also be part of the grading criteria. And when you're finished with this assignment, you can upload it to the Dropbox. Now, a final word that I want to leave you with. There are some students in the past who have been a little bit overzealous in sort of being negative in their negative message. So here are some examples of things that students have written in the past that are just way too negative. For example, this should teach you a lesson. You were just going through the motions. Wait a few more quarters to think over your behavior and mature before pursuing another internship. You should be ashamed. Remember, you still need to maintain goodwill in your message because the student is still going to have to complete their 3191 credit. So overall, even though this is a negative message, you still want to be as positive as possible in your ending. So again, when you're finished with your letter, upload it to the Dropbox and let me know if you have any questions.